Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So sometimes building out the infrastructure of your home network or your small office network entails adding certain utilities for core functionality. Today, I want to talk a little bit about self-hosted scanning. So printing software is easy to install, and many printers also have scanning capability. I mean, usually you'll just install a printer driver out of the box and your printer is pretty much up and running. Scanner software, however, is usually more complicated. So SANE stands for Scanner Access Now Easy, and the SANE protocol provides an API that standardizes access to scanners. The older protocol, called Twain, did not separate the user interface from the driver of a particular device, and so a lot of times you would have a proprietary scanning program on your computer for a particular proprietary scanner. SANE separates device controls from the end user interface. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to implement an application called ScanServe.js, which is a web-based interface to your SANE compliant scanner. So let's take a quick look at ScanServe.js, and here's the GUI that I have displayed in the Google Chrome web browser at the moment. Here I have a drop-down that'll give me my various scanners, and right now I only have one scanner configured on the system. And you have a source here, which could be flatbed. I'm not sure what other source they could have. You can set your resolution to be whatever you want. So I can say 300 dots per inch. And then here the mode can either be line art, which catches the edges of things a little bit better, or it can be grayscale, or it can be color. So I'm going to make it grayscale. And then you have the option of doing batch mode, which is either no batch mode, which just means scan a single page, or you can choose manual with prompt, or if you have a scanner that supports a document feeder or supports collation, then you can do that. In this particular case, I'm going to do a scan that's going to be 3 pages. They're just kind of random pages printed out from one of my previous presentations. And then we're going to see what it does. And here you have control over lots of different file types. They've got JPEG, high, medium, and low quality. You've got PNG. You have TIFF uncompressed. You have TIFF compressed. You have PDF uncompressed and compressed, and then JPEG PDFs. And then you've got OCR files, and then just where you print a PDF, which I haven't tried that particular option yet. So we're going to try the TIFF LZW compressed file. Actually, no. Let's go try the PDF file. So we'll make it a PDF TIFF compressed. So this way, when this thing comes out, I can go view this with a PDF viewer. So this is the scanner page, and this center here is a preview of what we're going to be scanning, and you can control what part of the page you want to scan. And then, so we're on that scanning section here. Over here, you can also go to a file section, which shows you which things you have previously scanned, and you can click on a download option, or you can click on an edit option where you can change the name of the file name, or you can simply delete it from the scanning host so that it isn't out there anymore. So theoretically, I guess you'd go off and scan these things and you download them, and then you would delete them, but you could leave them out here for other folks on your network to download. So then we have the settings option. And the settings option is just allows you to set your theme. It's like light and dark theme, that type of thing. And then you can also clear your storage, that sort of thing. And then the about just gives you the version number and tells you a little bit about the GitHub project itself. And in fact, if we click on this, this will link off to the GitHub page for ScanServe.js. So that's talking about the product. All right, so if we come back here and we go to scan, and then we say we're going to do manual with prompt. I've got a 3-page scan, but I'll have to lay each of the 3 pages on the glass. So first off, I'm going to do a preview, and it will go out and preview the first document. So I'll go off and say scan, and when we scan it, it will go off and do a 300 dpi scan, and so then I could rescan the page, I could finish, or I could go to next. So now that we have document number 2 on the glass, we'll go ahead and click next, and it scanned document number 2. So now I click next to scan the document 3rd page. And once it scans the 3rd page, then I'm going to click finish, and finish will go ahead and save the document out. So once it saves the document out, you can see here that this new document is this one called scan_22 whatever. So I can go here and rename this thing, and I'll just call this scan test. And you can see there it's renamed it scan test. Now that we have the scan test document saved out, I can hit the down arrow to download it. Go ahead and click the document itself, and then you can see that this document has the 3 pages that we scanned in, and I can rotate it so I can view it. There's page 1, page 2, and page 3 of the document. So now let's go scan in a picture, but before we do that, let's go over to the settings page, and let's change the theme to the dark theme, and we'll go back to the files page, and there you can see that I like that a whole lot better, and you probably do too. You can also change the size of your thumbnails, so depending upon what your preferences are, you can do that. So let's go back to the scan page here, and the source will still be flatbed, will still be 300 resolution, but instead of grayscale, we're going to go to color, and instead of batch mode, we're going to say none because we just have a single picture, and we're going to choose JPEG high quality, and we'll do a preview. Now that we have the picture scanned in, I'm going to go ahead and move the handles here to scan just the section that is the picture. Once we have those on there, we'll go ahead and hit the scan button. Brings us over to the files page. We're going to go ahead and change this and call this grandkids. Save that. And we'll go ahead and download this. Click on it, and it will view using our photo viewer in our operating system. So there you go. And of course you can go out and delete these things or leave them there, and everything is manageable. So let's see what it takes to actually install our own version of the document scanner. So I'm going to create a Lexi instance. This could just as well be a VM, and I'm just doing a Lexi launch Ubuntu :2204. I'm calling the name of my server scan-test, and in this particular case I'm bridging it to my main LAN. I'm giving this thing 4 gigs of memory and telling it can use up to 20% allowance of my LexD host. Boot.autostart is set to true, and nesting is set to true. So if you already have a Docker host, then you don't need to go through those steps. You can simply install this on your Docker host. But we're going to do a lexi exec over to scan-test and get into the Bash shell. Let's go ahead and do an add user Scott, just so I have a user account. And I'm going to go ahead and do a user mod -a capital G sudo Scott. And then let's do our apt update again and see if that works. And 8 packages can be updated, so I'm going to do an apt upgrade. Just for convenience sake, I'm going to do an apt install on net-tools. And I like that because I like the format of ifconfig. And it shows me this thing is running at address 172.16.1.76 on my main network as I had requested. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Docker on this machine. Like I said, if you already have a Docker host, then you don't need to do these steps. You'll simply be installing the application on your Docker host. So here we go. I'm installing Docker through the standard Docker installation routine. Okay, now that Docker's installed, I'm going to do a user mod -a capital G Docker Scott, putting Docker or putting Scott in the Docker group. And then that way when I go onto the Scott account, and I'm going to do that here with an SU dash over to Scott, and now I'm on the Scott account. Just by convention, I like to do a make dir on a folder that I'm going to put the files in for the Docker application, and the folder I'm going to create is called scanner, and I'm going to cd into scanner. Of course, there's nothing in the scanner folder yet, but what I want to do is I want to do a nano of Docker. Whoops, wait a second, we're going to have to do a sudo apt install docker-compose, because although we installed Docker, we had not yet installed Docker Compose. So now that we're installing Docker Compose, so before we can create our Docker container, we're going to need to have support for the scanning software on the Docker host. What we're going to do is we're going to do a sudo apt install libsane, which is the sane library that's going to provide support for this. We'll have all this in the notes, of course. So it's installing the sane library on the Docker host. Once that's completed, we can test to see whether or not we see any scanners on our network, and the way that we can do that is a scan image -L to list our scanners. That'll go off and scan your network and find any sane compliant scanners and add them to the local database. And there you can see that it actually picked up my scanner in multiple different ways, but it picked up my one desktop printing, scanning, multifunction device. Now that we have scan support installed and our scanners recognized, we're going to do a nano docker-compose.yml. And in this file, I'm going to insert the code. So just a little bit of look at this. It's version 3. I'm saying the services are scanner. The container name I'm going to call scanner. It's a privileged container, and that's required so that it can access the sane drivers on the host. And then this is the name of the container, the image of the container. I say restart unless stopped. And then port numbers, again, they use port 8080 inside the container. And since this is a dedicated host, I use port 80 outside the container. If you're on a Docker host or a host that has other applications running, you want to pick a port number that's free. Then there's 3 volumes here. The first volume actually points down to the var-run-/dbus location, and that's where it is enumerated the scanners. And then we have a scanned file location and a configuration location. So we're going to go ahead and save that out, and we're going to do a docker-compose up/-d, and it will go ahead and download the images required for this particular Docker application. Now that the Docker application is up and running, we can do a docker -ps, and you can see there that it's running. If we do another ps, you can see it's adding up. It's not restarting. Everything seems to be good. So you can do docker-compose -logs, and it will give you the log messages in the end. And if you see any errors, then you can deal with those, but it doesn't look like we have any errors. So at this point, I do an ifconfig to see what the address of my system is. And again, it's 172.16.1.76. And since I use port 80, I can navigate to that on my web browser. If you used a different port, you'll want to navigate to that port. So here we go. 172.16.1.76 in my case, and it brings up the interface. It's scanning for the scanners on the system, so the first time it takes a little bit longer to come up than it will in other times. And here, if I look at the drop down, you can see that it's both discovered the AirScan and this other version of the scanner. Both of them work. I have all my settings. I still have the picture on the scanner, so I can do a preview and it will go off and scan that particular picture. And since it scanned it as line art, it looks like that. So I probably want to change it to color. And let's do another preview again. And again, since I prefer dark mode, I'm going to come over here to settings and choose dark mode and go back to scan. And now I'm going to change it so that it will scan just the file itself or just the picture itself on the glass as opposed to scanning the entire glass. I click the scan. It's going to go off and scan that. And when it's done, it will jump over to the files section showing me that it has scanned the file, and there it is. So in summary, ScanServe.js is a web-based application that can be implemented on your network to provide an interface to the same API supported on modern printers and scanners. By implementing ScanServe.js on your network, you have essentially enabled what I call scanning as a service. And since its acronym is SaaS, which is software as a service, we'll just have to say scanning as a service. This prevents the necessity of installing proprietary scanning software on every computer on your network. The result is a high-quality scanning utility that can be accessed from desktops, tablets, and even phones. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.